Imagine growing up in a house where talent is not a gift, it is a weapon used against you. Where the man who is supposed to protect you is the one who scares you the most. Where every mistake is not just a mistake, it is a reason to be punished. Now, imagine that same child standing in front of 100,000 people, owning every second, becoming the most famous human being on the planet. How does a broken boy become the king of pop? That is the question this film dares to answer, and the answer will change everything you thought you knew. Stay with us, because what you are about to see is not just a movie. This is a life. This is pain turned into music. This is survival turned into legend.
Gary, Indiana, 1963. A small house on Jackson Street. Yes, the family actually lived on a street that shared their name, but there was nothing poetic about that house. Inside those walls, a father named Joe Jackson was building something, not a family, but a machine. Joe saw talent in his sons, incredible talent, but here is the part the history books soften. He did not nurture that talent, he weaponized it. Young Michael, the most gifted of all the brothers, became both the crown jewel and the most vulnerable target. The better Michael performed, the higher Joe's expectations rose, and when those expectations weren't met, the punishment was swift, harsh, and sometimes terrifying. Michael would later say, in his own words, that he could never look his father in the eye without feeling something cold move through him. He said that fear and performance became the same thing to him, so intertwined that by the time he was a teenager, he did not know where one ended and the other began. But here is what makes this story unforgettable. Michael did not break, he bent. He absorbed every hit, every criticism, every humiliation, and he quietly, privately, furiously began to plan his escape. Wait till you see what happens next, because the moment Michael Jackson decided to fight back, he did not use fists, he used music, and that changed the world forever. The Jackson 5 signed with Motown Records. Michael was 11 years old. 11, and already a professional. The label polished them, packaged them, put them on stages that most grown men dream about their entire lives. The crowds went wild, the girls screamed, the television cameras loved them. But behind the glitter, Michael was watching. He was always watching. He studied James Brown from the side of the stage, like a young general studying battle tactics. He watched how Fred Astaire's feet barely seemed to touch the floor. He rewound tapes of Charlie Chaplin and asked himself, how does a person make a whole audience feel something without saying a single word? And all the while, Joe was there, controlling the schedule, controlling the money, controlling the image. If Michael so much as showed interest in going somewhere alone, it became an argument. If he tried to speak to a producer without Joe in the room, there were consequences. The public saw a smiling boy. The family saw a tightly wound spring. The hidden power was building. By the time Michael was in his early 20s, something had fundamentally shifted inside him. He had started working with producer Quincy Jones, and in those recording sessions, something happened that the world was not prepared for. Michael began making decisions, real decisions, creative decisions that went against what Joe wanted, against what the label expected, against everything the formula demanded.
He experimented with sound in ways that felt almost reckless. He insisted on arrangements that nobody had tried before. He pushed the engineers past exhaustion because he could hear something in his head that did not exist yet in the physical world, and he was going to find it no matter what it cost. Off the Wall dropped in 1979. Critics loved it, the public loved it, but Michael was not satisfied. He looked at the Grammy nominations and felt a public humiliation that most people never fully understood. The album had sold millions, changed the game, and it did not win Album of the Year. That loss lit a fire. Michael went back into the studio. He told Quincy Jones, and he said this quietly, calmly, with the certainty of a man who had already decided that the next album was not going to be the best album he had made. It was going to be the best album anyone had ever made. The engineers thought he was exaggerating. They would find out he was not. Thriller, 1982. The album that did not just break records, it redefined what a record could be. It spent 37 weeks at #1. Every single track became a hit. The videos were not just promotional tools, they were short films, art installations disguised as pop music. The 14-minute Thriller video alone cost more than any music video ever made at that time, and it paid back that investment 1,000 times over. And somewhere in a small room watching all of this, Joe Jackson was watching his son become someone he could no longer control, someone who no longer needed him, someone who had walked through the fire Joe had created and come out the other side as something that had never existed before. The moonwalk happened on live television in 1983. Michael glided backward across that stage, and the entire world stopped. His brothers stood watching from the wings, and one of them would later say that in that moment, they all knew. They all understood. Michael had not just become famous, Michael had become something else entirely. He had become immortal.
Here is what I want you to sit with. Michael Jackson did not become the king of pop because he was born lucky. He became the king of pop because he took every single thing that was meant to diminish him, the fear, the control, the humiliation, the loneliness, the public scrutiny, and he transformed it, alchemized it, turned it into something that would outlive every person who ever doubted him. There is a lesson inside that story that has nothing to do with music. It has to do with what human beings do when they are pressed past their limits. Some people shatter, some people harden, and a rare few, a rare extraordinary few, they create something the world has never seen before. That little boy from Gary, Indiana, the one who was afraid to look his father in the eye, he eventually looked the entire world in the eye, and the world blinked first. That is the power of a story that refuses to be silenced. That is the legacy of a human being who chose art over anger, creation over destruction, love over fear. This is just episode 1. In the next episode, we go deeper. The battles with record labels over ownership of his masters, the moment he purchased the Beatles catalog, and the private war that defined the last 2 decades of his life. If this story moved you, if it made you feel something, subscribe right now. Hit the bell. Share this with one person who needs to hear it. Because the stories that matter most are the ones most people never fully tell. We tell them here every single week.